We all are only 1 degree removed from knowing someone who is being impacted by workplace violence or some form of online exploitation. This issue filters into employee wellness, impacting engagement at work. Let's bridge this gap by bringing awareness and education to these pressing issues and shield the vulnerable.
Welcome back, everybody, to another podcast episode of Shield the Vulnerable. I'm super excited about today's guest. It's Wendi Pannell. It's Wendi with an I. Absolutely love the way you spell your name. It stands out from all the other Wendys in the world out there. No offense to all the other Wendys out there, but Wendi, I got to know you through doing some work with you. You run a company, Pannell Consulting, and you're a fractional COO. You are an adjunct professor at Virginia Tech. And I personally know you. The one thing that really stood out about you when I worked with you is you are hyper organized. And I got to experience that firsthand, but it's your infectious high energy that you bring to the projects that you lead that I absolutely love. And you probably need that high energy. You are a mom of 3 boys. You're a huge advocate for women in technology through mentorship, and you're encouraging more women to get into this tech space and to find their place in that. So Wendi, welcome. Thank you for joining us here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dave. I am excited to be here, and I will turn that around and say the other thing I loved working about with you and Dylan was also your energy. So we were well matched there.
Yeah. There's definitely, it was the meetings, the work that we did together, there was definitely some buzz and vibration around that, which was awesome. So when we last spoke, you brought up a really cool analogy, and we'll call it the tornado analogy. I'm going to let you dive into that. But as I talked about before in a conversation you had, you're an adjunct professor at Virginia Tech. You were a former student at Virginia Tech. And in April of 2007, as many people know, there was an active shooter incident that took place, sadly, at Virginia Tech. It claimed over 30 lives, and 33 lives were taken. Many more people were injured and impacted. And something like this is something that we would all think is never, ever going to happen to us. But the reality is, sadly, these things do happen. Now, I know that you weren't there during this event, but the event itself still had an impact on you. And you gave me this really cool analogy about a tornado, about preparedness, and about not living in a reactive frame of mind.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that it was a journalist who was talking to a survivor of a tornado that had happened right during tornado season. And it hit me because I, who also live with a very preparedness-driven husband, realized that there is just this comfort, or it's not going to happen to me. But what he said to the reporter, the survivor said to the reporter was, hey, I've lived in this area and knew tornadoes could happen, but now it's happened to me. And I have a new respect for tornadoes and the damage that it can do. And next time I hear that siren, I am going to take cover, right? Just a new firsthand understanding of what can happen. And, I think as humans, as employees and as employers, we want to focus on the other stuff, right? The fun perks and stuff like that. And we don't want to bring up the bad things that can happen. But when you can figure out how to do that successfully with your employees, heck, with your townspeople, right, to warn them about things that can happen, at some point they're going to appreciate it. You hope they never do, kind of like insurance. But that just really hit me because I feel like I live in that world a little bit, even though every day I live with a guy that's like, did you lock the front door?
Right. Well, you just said it's like insurance. Training that goes outside of compulsory check the box, regulatory training that's mandated that says we have to do it. Is kind of like your insurance policy. Not everybody has insurance, but the time when something happens and you wish you did, That's what you can fall back on, because it's that reassurance. It's going beyond what regulatory training says that we need to do for things that we think would never, ever happen.
Right.
Right. It's, and I follow by like a hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And I don't live in that frame of mind. I don't live in a mindful or a fearful state of mind, but you got to be prepared. So when we talk about this preparation and safety, and I know you've worked with a lot of organizations, you've worked at a school that's been forever impacted by active threat incidents. How do you think that an organization that is prepared versus not can impact employee engagement, can impact employee wellness?
I mean, I think that how it can impact them, you hope you never find out how it will impact them, right? Because trauma can either isolate or bond a team. But it's when something does happen, and even maybe minor, right? Like you kind of educated me on the things that go beyond just a significant incident like that, like in the smaller incidents. But I think you have to be able to tell a story and give them a deeper understanding of what that can look like so that they can relate, but not be fearful. Because even as an adjunct professor now, heck, Dave, I have to even say, like, walking down the road or wanting to help a homeless person on the side of the road, like we all live in some kind of fear, like we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't open our car window. Should I lock the door? But I think if you can really empower your employees to know two things. One, that you care enough to offer this type of training or awareness. And then two, you provide them training that is very relatable and that they can take away, maybe just not in their workplace, but also at home. I think that employees, given everything else is okay, right? Because there's certainly some basic comforts that they need to have in their job, but employees that are already engaged, this kind of training and engagement and awareness, they're going to appreciate in their whole life, not just their work life.
Yeah. Do you think so? When we look at training like this and stuff that goes outside of that mandated stuff that people need to have, that when organizations look at it, and you've worked alongside a lot of CEOs, a lot of CFOs, do they look at this and go, like, their primary responsibility is the fiscal responsibility of the company? And do you find it common that they question things that may not be mandated and go, well, how is this going to make me money or save me money? But how do we draw that nexus then to them to go, well, the next obvious thing is you may not see this on the bottom line. However, there is an intrinsic value in it.
Yeah, for sure. And especially now, just the state of economy and change that we're in. I mean, companies are looking even more so at their bottom line. But the interesting thing is, for lack of a better word, Dave, I'm just going to call it the state of crazy that our world is in. We have a lot more people stressed out, a lot more people irrational that we would have never expected. So I feel like, interestingly, while they're like, yeah, we can't do that, we can't afford it, I feel like there's so much more chance that, unfortunately, terrible things could happen in the workplace these days, because there is just so much uncertainty and change with people. So, it's in something else that we kind of talked about, right? Because I was working with a company that was building a tool, but it's not right. Even the services and the education that you provide, we're not replacing a tool. We're actually trying to drive change and change behavior and educate. So it's not a replacement. And trying to change behavior and kind of build a new muscle is much harder than like replacing a tool or giving them something that they're used to. So it does become harder, and you have to kind of tell those stories. But I hadn't really thought about this before we're talking today. I think it's even more important that companies are looking at this type of awareness and education because of how people are feeling and reacting right now.
And it's not, I know I prefaced all this in talking about Virginia Tech and the shooting that happened there, but it's not just about preparation for an active shooter. It's preparation for an active threat. It could be that highly disgruntled individual. It could be an employee. It could be a spouse of an employee. It could be a customer. And, things don't go from 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds all the time. Things can lead up to it. They can build up to it. It can take months. But if we're ignoring warning indicators, if we're ignoring signs, that person, if they're felt as though they're not heard, that their concerns aren't being addressed, it can elevate to that, especially in the, you said the craziness that's going on, the chaotic world that we live in right now, that there is a lot of chaos. There's a lot of noise that we have to sift through. And it's more important than ever to make sure that our people are protected. Right.
Well, and I like how you preface that too. Like, things could be prevented if people had the tools to address and recognize, or maybe it's just escalate, right? Like, as a CEO, as a leader, I think a lot of leaders avoid having conversations because they don't know what to say or how to support. The fact is, you don't always have to know what to say or how to support. You need to listen, and you need to know what to do with that information. So if you think about this as also not even getting to that escalation point, but giving people tools to de-escalate or just listen or report up, you could completely prevent a terrible thing from happening.
You could. And people, leaders, like you said, don't always know what to say. And I don't think you sometimes have to. I think sometimes it's okay to look at somebody and say, you know what? I'm not sure what to say right now, but I'm hearing you. And people don't care. I think this is David or Stephen Covey. It's like, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You can know all the things about running the inside intricacies of your business. But if people feel as though that humanized approach and level of care has to go beyond what's the balance sheet say? That's tough. That's tough because you are responsible to boards. You're responsible to the public. You're responsible to so many people. So you have something that I like, and it's about the key to unlocking growth lies in the perfect blend of process, people, and product. And I want to take that statement. So the key to unlocking growth lies in the perfect blend of process, people, and product. And let's talk about that now and how that translates into caring about employees and caring about their wellness and engagement.
I mean, engagement has changed a lot since we've gone remote, but I truly believe like the foundation, if we had an engagement bucket, the foundation of the engagement bucket, or like the bucket itself, is just giving people clarity in their roles and goals. What do I do? Why am I doing it? Like, what are we trying to achieve? Having those regular check-ins and recognition, which often get forgotten in a really busy, outcomes-driven world. And then just creating environments where people can do what they do best. Or as I say it, like putting a person in a role where they're now like wearing their cape, right? Because if we enable people with clarity in what they're supposed to do and where they're going, you're enabling them to do their job without having to micromanage them, which means that you as a leader can focus on the things that you need to focus on that no one else can. So I think, getting people in the right role, the right people in the right role, and then having clarity and goals and how do I do my job, giving them the tools that they need, just really is going to elevate any company beyond the turning of wheels and feeling like we keep doing the same thing over and over again and not seeing success, which I see in so many small and medium-sized companies. Like, everyone's busy and people aren't happy, they feel overworked, but I don't see a needle moving. And it's usually because there's not a needle for them to see that they're growing or they're not growing, they're making progress or not making progress.
Interesting. I'm gonna steal this from another podcast I did with a guy, Adam Hickman, and he is he's a VP of human resources with Partners Financial Credit Union, which is it's a Disney company. And he talked about, how many companies focus on when they lose somebody, they do these exit interviews. And he's like, 99% of people don't do anything with that information. They do the exit interview because they say they have to, or so, it's part of their process. Because like we focus on doing engagement interviews and we go and talk to people about why they love working for partners and why they love working for a certain company. He's like, and when we take that approach, and then he's like, when he's just talking about touch points with people, if you know something's going on in somebody's life, if you know, Wendy's daughter's getting married or Wendy's son's getting married, or there's something, or somebody was sick, and he's like, create touch points that you don't have to wait until something happens to then go, I'm not quite sure what to say or how to say it. Right. Or how to support you through this. He's like, just create frequent touch points where it elevates the trust that people have with us.
100%.
So when we talk about elevating that trust, and in this chaotic world now, how much does safety play into that? Do you think that's actively on employees' minds? Is it in the back of their mind? And they, do employees look at it the same way that executives would look at it and go, well, it's a tornado. It probably won't ever land here or hit my house.
Yeah.
Or do they value it? It's one of our needs to feel safe as human beings.
I feel like that the whole basis of safety, I feel like you either have employees that really think about it, and it might really show up in their work, or they're always concerned, or you have employees that are going about their day like, that's not going to happen to me. But I think that there is this balance that an employer can give their employees that is, hey, we inherently think that we work in a safe environment, we're in a safe town or whatever, but we know that things can happen. And so here is what we are doing as a company to support you and your family, like whatever it may be. And this is what that looks like. These are the services that we provide that we want you to tap into, and that we're going to promote and give you time to take the training or read the resources. We'll bring speakers in. So I think we're in the world now where that topic, almost that, I'll call it a line item on the engagement budget, should be a factor for leaders. But I think that we're still getting there, right? We're still getting to a time period where it's part of it, right? Because it's probably, especially for bigger companies, they are definitely taking action. It's on a bottom line somewhere, but what they're doing with that money to make it impactful and engaging for the employees. I definitely see it at the university, right? They do different type of sessions and trainings. They make them available to employees. When I worked at GE, right, we had teams that were our safety teams. We ran through drills. We knew where our safety spot was outside. And that was in Richmond, Virginia. We didn't have too many tornadoes. But I also think smaller, medium-sized companies don't know what that looks like. They don't know what good could look like. So I think that you, as an expert in the space, are going to have to show them, hey, you might not have thought about this, but here's what you could do to help and support your employees. The bigger companies, it's on there. The smaller companies, it's probably not on top of mind for them.
Right. And is that just from thinking that it'll never happen?
I think it's both. I think it's for smaller companies, it might be scarcity of I'm just trying to hit my revenue. Or also a lot of smaller and medium-sized companies, their leadership came from, I'm just going to use an example as a restaurant, right? They were passionate about food. They had their grandma's recipes. They've taken it into a restaurant. Yeah. That's the only life that they've known is working in a restaurant. No one ever showed them, oh, I should do these things for my employees. Or maybe they never saw safety in their own jobs that they had kind of coming up through whatever career. So it's not even top of mind for them. It's not even oh, I should think about safety if they've never experienced it. So I think there's a lot of companies out there that aren't considering it because they've never seen what a good implementation of it looks like.
Yeah. And when we're talking employee engagement around it too, and I think that there's a difference between getting forced buy-in versus belief. And if you can get your teams to have belief around it and you're preparing them ahead of time, rather than implementing new systems and then trying to get people to buy into it after the implementation, there's a lead up phase to it that creates a belief and it creates a culture and it creates a culture of safety within organizations. And that causes people to, rise up and it enhances their engagement, it enhances their mental wellness. If I can take one worry out of the mental bucket that you have in your head of all the things in our life that can cause us worry or anxiety or fear, and we can take some of those off of your plate because we've prepared you for things, it helps people tremendously because it's the straw that broke the camel's back. It's, what everybody has things going on in their lives outside of work.
Yeah.
And certain things, how they get handled can have a huge impact on them. Huge impact.
Yeah. And these are school tools that they can use in work and outside of work. But you just said one thing, Dave, like that engagement. I think you're going to get better engagement when you have your team running it. So when you enable someone within your organization, hey, we're going to bring in this tool, this training, we're going to bring this in and we want to roll it out. But I want this to really be employee driven. And having them kind of direct that and roll it out, I think also supports any type of engagement. But that creates like that connection and purpose with the teams. It also gives them a sense of pride that they're rolling something out like this across their organization. But then it's not like, thou shalt and you must, and here's another dang training that you've got to take. So I think that's a great idea for creating that connection and that purpose around having employees roll out programs like this.
When it comes to buy-in and different things, I'm going to address this because it keeps coming up in conversations, of individuals that I speak to that are in roles like yourself. And it's this common theme, we'll call it the pizza and ping pong theory. Companies are great. Free lunches, ping pong tables, right? That's nice. But does it actually drive up employee engagement and wellness? Or is it the training and real world things that drive up employee engagement and wellness?
Definitely the real world things. Like I really think the pizza and ping pong days are over.
Those days are gone?
I think they're one, you don't have as many people in the office, but I think it gets back to also generational, right? Like when I worked at my last company, I had a lot of young employees and they taught me so much because I grew up in you work hard, you get paid. And these kids were like, well, yeah, but I also want to believe in what I'm doing and I want to understand the purpose and the why. And I was like, that's so odd, but that's fantastic. Right. That even helped me kind of shift my thoughts about my own work and what I was doing. But I think that people today want connection and purpose, partly because they're not all in the office and they're not feeling connected to what they're doing. So, taking that out of, being in the office and incidents happening again, I think this training that you guys are putting out in the world is so important for their work world and their personal world, right? Because these people are going out into places that could also have things happen. So
it's not just workplace, they're getting real world life skill sets.
Yeah. But I think it's got to start with a good culture where people are already feeling like you're trying to focus on them and not just the bottom line. I used to tell my teams, hey, I'm here to help support you. Like my job is to remove roadblocks, but I want to make your job easy and I want to make you happy because I know that you as happy employees make happy products, right? You're going to make things better for our customers because you're happy.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Quickly shifting gears here. And thank you for all of your sentiments around that. You are a huge advocate for women in technology. So for any female out there that's listening that wants to break into that world, what's your biggest, greatest advice to them to overcome the challenges that they need to lead the way?
Yeah. I mean, if they're already in tech or wanting to get in tech, I think they have to reach out and ask. Women supporting women. I have not found very many women that would not take a random reach out on LinkedIn to say, hey, I really like what you're saying or what you're doing. I think I would like to get in the field. But I think we have to find people in the path that we want to go and reach out and say, hey, do you have time for a chat? Because that will lead to another chat. And I think making those connections and understanding what world they might want to be getting into or what profession they might want to be getting into gives them some landscape and some understanding of what's next, because it's going to be specific based on what they want to do. So I think you've got to start by just having the conversations and not being afraid to ask another woman for help, because they will.
Yeah. Amazing. So for yourself, right? You're an entrepreneur, you're breaking into this world, you're doing a lot of different things. Who are your biggest mentors that you've leaned to that other women can maybe turn to or find that are accessible to them? Who's helped you pave the way for what you do?
That's a really good question. And actually, I think it leads to why I love to support women, because when I was coming up, there weren't a lot of other women that I could look to get support or help. And so that's why when I kind of started climbing the proverbial corporate ladder and being successful myself, I was always trying to pull up the next person, because it was important to me, because I didn't have it when I was growing up in IT. So what I kind of built around myself is I sought out people in similar industries, in a similar space. But I also, as I even pursued and kind of got further up the ladder, I talked to people that worked for me, right? So like that reverse mentoring. But I also built villages of women that were in my season of life. I've got a group of women from GE. We all had 3 or more kids. And this was about the time that the Bad Moms movie came out.
Yeah.
For 10 years now, we've had a chat, ongoing chat messages called the Bad Moms, where we just check in with each other. We support each other. We offer advice or say, hey, go talk to this person. So I think it's really just finding your village of women that are going to support you in the different seasons. And it's not always going to be the same person, right? Like what got you here is not what's going to get you there. But I think seeking people inside and outside your organization is very important.
I love that. I love that reverse mentoring analogy and perception. And it is, I think we forget that we need to surround ourselves with people who sometimes are better than us. And when I say better than us, I mean somebody who's gone through what we've gone through and can be there and pushes you. Somebody who just doesn't say, oh, it's okay to settle. It's okay to be here, right? But somebody with that like mindset. You created these different villages of women who, a mentor doesn't need to be a big famous name or a big celebrity or a big major author. It's somebody who understands you, but it's going to encourage you and push you through when times are tough, and not just say, it's okay, you can settle and just stay right here. Yeah.
You don't need a yes person.
Yeah.
You need a, have you considered this
person? I like that.
Yeah.
Have you thought about it this way? Person.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. Wendi, where can people find you in your fractional COO world and your high energy, everything that you do? Where can people find you?
LinkedIn. I have really the past few years enjoyed really writing on LinkedIn. I've been a little quiet lately, but that's going to change. But then LinkedIn, you can get to my website, my terribly named Pannell Consulting. Okay, I'm not a marketing person. So I just went with the first LLC that I could, but I'm also at wendipannell.com. But yeah, I would love to connect with folks.
Awesome. All right. And don't forget, Wendi with an I.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah. Two N's and two L's in Pannell.
It's your trademark. You should trademark Wendi with an I and take that name away from everybody.
Yeah. And you know what? I met another Wendi with an I.
Oh.
First time ever. Yeah. We've really bonded.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. All right. Wendi, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your insights on employee engagement, on our tornado analogy and preparation. I know you said your husband is a huge advocate for emergency safety and planning, and I know that he is, through other conversations with you. But your tenacity, your belief behind employee engagement and helping women rise in the technology world is an inspiration. So thank you for all that you do. For those who are listening, whether you are a CEO, a CFO, corporate social responsibility, HR, doesn't matter. Your people matter. And they don't, as I said earlier, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And when we stop looking at people as a bottom line, as a contributor to that, and we start to care about their safety and protecting our organizations, I know it's sometimes tough to put a quantifiable number to it, but it's a qualitative measure. And sometimes it's that quality that matters behind it. So Wendi, thank you for being an amazing guest. This has been another great episode of Shield the Vulnerable, Untold Stories. We'll see you next time.